Yeah, absolutely. Guys, this is probably the best list of questions that I've been a part of in any kind of webinar series like this. Usually you get one or two questions and then the hosts are just faking questions, but these are actually awesome questions. I'm going to go in order so that I'm not playing favorites. First question came in. What was the most difficult aspect of project management for you to learn?
Let's see. I think organization and prioritization is something that was difficult for me in the beginning, particularly because it was it was almost like because I'm a people pleaser, I'm a relationship builder, I don't want to let anyone down. But when I have the volume of projects and requests coming in, I literally cannot handle all of them and should not. Something I like to remind myself, and this is a product manager at Lyft told me this one time, is you have to prioritize ruthlessly. And when I first heard that, I didn't quite understand it. But as I moved up in my career, I really started to get like, if you focus on everything and prioritize everything, then nothing gets done of the quality that you're looking for. So being able to pick and choose and understand what the right projects to focus on to have the impact that I was looking for was definitely something that I needed to learn. And I certainly went down the path of trying to push projects forward that I probably shouldn't have. That didn't have the type of impact for the amount of effort that we put into it. It just wasn't worth it. And so, yeah, I think really having a good sense of looking at what's in front of you, what's going to drive either growth or revenue, whatever you're looking at, and being able to pick and choose the right ones. That is a skill, and one that I did not have before I got into project management. So yeah, that was probably one of the more difficult skills I had to learn.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's a skill, and you don't really know that you need it until you get to that level where you have all that on your plate, right? At a more junior level, you don't have that on your plate, so you don't realize how tough it is to prioritize. But thank you for that. Next question: what is your advice on the software or skill set for somebody getting into localization? The asker says, "I have a PM and linguistics background, but confused as to what it is that will land me a LPM job."
Yeah, so I would say at least on my journey, because I had been at the company at Lyft for quite a while, particularly in the beginning, I was able to meet a lot of hire people to get into the role, eventually into the localization role. So I would say, first of all, knowing another language, I think is really helpful. That's kind of first and foremost, because at the very beginning, I was doing a lot of the smaller spot translations. Now, of course, we had vendors to do that, but if in a pinch, I was able to handle the Spanish translation. So I think that's something that'll serve you really well. And then I'd also, don't look to join a large developed program. I think if you look for smaller companies that are just starting out and don't really have a large localization program, I think that's probably the best way to break into it. And if you can get in early and get in and be able to advocate for localization at the very beginning, you can grow with the company and become that subject matter expert, and then take that elsewhere. And I think that's really what my journey was as well. I didn't start in localization, but I did speak another language. I finally was able to get there. I learned quite a bit, and then Netflix came calling.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Next question: how big is the Loch team at Netflix, and how do you all approach internationalization in order to be able to support so many locales and languages?
I don't want to say specifics. I want to just start there. It's large. I will say that it's quite a few people, and it's divided in a way that there are people that focus on really specific parts of it. Like I said, I'm on the product side, on project management. There's also program management on that side. Then there's a vendor team. There's vendor management on that side. There's even a team for enabling. There's a lot of internal tools that Netflix has in order to facilitate localization. So there are dedicated engineers and product managers specifically for the tools that are used, like the TMS or for subtitling, things like that. So what was the second part of the question about the internationalization part? Because I want to make sure I understand that, because I think that's a really interesting point.
So how do you all approach internationalization in order to be able to support so many localizing languages? They left it vague for you.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think it really is driven by data. There's a really rich data set that Netflix has that people have access to. So looking at different metrics in different markets, trying to understand which countries to go into next. And there's a series of metrics that are looked at. I can't really get into specifics on what those metrics are, but just suffice it to say that it's very deliberate, and there are nothing is done in terms of creating subtitles or localizing the product experience into another language without a serious amount of people involved. The last thing I'll say on this is the approach is there's no, and this is something I struggled with at Lyft. I had to convince people that localization was important. And there's not that sense at Netflix. There's just not. People at this global company, it's part of the process. It's not something that's like, oh, maybe we should do it, maybe we shouldn't. So in terms of, to answer the question, the approach of internationalization, there are people on the globalization team that are involved very early and often in that decision making. And that's what I really think is able to keep the machine moving forward in a way that's consistent, and the decisions that are made for localizing in other languages are clear, and it's not they've been thought out, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, maybe we should do this language, maybe we shouldn't. So yeah.
Great. Is there a lot of coding involved in the day-to-day tasks?
I do not do any coding. I do not know how to code. I mean, I would say, as far as my experience coding, I can understand SQL, which I know is a very basic language. The good old select from where. Maybe I could write a few basic queries. I don't do any of that. There are other people that are involved in that. I think, as I mentioned before, if you're getting into a smaller company and you want to break into localization, I would say that certainly is an advantage if you know how to code and understand how that works. I think that's definitely a leg up. But no, I don't do any coding in the role I'm in now.
Good to know. You don't have to be a software engineer in order to be a project manager.
Definitely not.
Okay, next question. How is translation consistency managed between the product, marketing, content areas? Does any one group have more say, or is it more of a collaborative effort?
It's definitely collaborative. I would say that there are quite a few people that are consulted. There's a team of language managers that oversee either certain locales or certain regions that are integral in terms of deciding on different terms, either for marketing or for product or for subs and dubs. There's really, the consistency is the goal, to have the same term used in all areas. Does that always happen? Probably not. But I think that's any kind of, I think any company is gonna struggle with that. So that's why there's a lot of great people working on it all the time. So yeah, there's not one piece that's any more important. And there's definitely collaboration between the people working on those different components to be able to try and drive consistency.
All right. Do you think to be a vendor for Netflix, qualities such as honesty, integrity are important along with security?
Absolutely. There is a team that focuses on vendor onboarding, vendor management, things like that, and there are literally thousands of linguists and dozens of vendors that Netflix works with because of the sheer volume of content. So there's a whole process of working with that team, applying to be a vendor. As you can imagine, they get quite a few applications, but absolutely, I think honesty and integrity at Netflix or anywhere else is going to be incredibly important, particularly when there's a lot of trust and faith put in the people that are translating your experience, that are going to be viewed by 200 million plus people.
Amazing. All right, let's try something. There's actually a lot of questions, and some of them are really good. I want to get through them. Let's power through. If it can be a one-word answer, feel free.
Okay.
Okay, you kind of answered this, but let's do it in a more fun way. What is a typical day in the life of a PM? But give it like, okay, I wake up, get to the office, check emails, go through a bullet point like that of your day to day.
Sure. So I wake up, I roll out of bed, and I walk 10 steps over to the office in my apartment. I turn on my computer, I feed my dog, I walk my dog, and then I come back and I get started. And so we use Jira, which you might have heard of. It's like a ticketing software that helps organize things. So I'm always constantly checking Jira for updates and new tickets. I do live in there a lot because that's where the action is. That's where linguists and QC testers and engineers and project managers are really all interacting. So I would say I spend a good amount of my day commenting on tickets, creating tickets sometimes, maybe if there's like a terminology change or something like that, where we want to use a different term that we have used in the past, then I'll be creating tickets there. But then also answering emails. But it's mostly moving around Jira tickets. Yeah. Sorry, that was longer. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Figured. No, it's totally fine. How do you think the localization industry will evolve in terms of technology and in terms of reach?
That's a good question. I'm pretty bullish on machine translation as a first pass. I think that the advancements in MT have really come quite a long way. I don't think that we're ready to just have it be MT and nothing. Maybe for certain kinds of content, but I think there's still quite a bit of ways to go on that. But I do think we're going to start to see more MT being implemented as a first pass in order to save costs and time. And then as far as I think, as systems get easier to talk to each other, I think we're going to start to see more and more companies localizing into more and more languages. As the cost comes down, as the integration gets easier, you're going to start to see more companies localize into more languages and make it easier to be global.
I agree with that. That's a safe answer. How have you adopted Netflix's unique feedback culture?
Well, still very, it's, I've only been there 2 months, so it's very early. I haven't gone through a feedback loop yet, but I have heard about it. And I appreciate the transparency. I'm always one to be open about when I'm experiencing. If I have a piece of feedback, I'm certainly open to share that and open to receive it. So I've kind of fit in pretty well so far, because that's just kind of the way I operate. I think there could be a tendency to sometimes to sugarcoat things. You don't want to offend people, or even the other way. Not to pick on Uber, but brilliant jerks, I think was the term that was coined by either a reporter or someone internally, about how it was, if they were really good at their job, it was okay for them to be not so nice to people. I don't think that's the right way either. So again, I haven't gone through this specifically, but I'm certainly ready and able to handle this type of feedback.
Maybe we'll do this again in like 6 or 9 months, and we'll ask you that same question and see how it goes.
Absolutely.
How much strategic parts are there in your day-to-day job?
Not so much anymore. I think because I'm on the project management side as opposed to program management, I don't have much of a say as the program manager that I work with on the components that I focus on. So not a lot. Now, that being said, I am attending a lot of meetings where they are going over strategic type projects that'll be coming up, new tests. So if I wanted to give feedback, I think I'm still learning a lot. So I'm not ready to really chime in with strategy just yet. But I think in the next few months, I probably will. And I am given that flexibility and that forum. If I wanted to raise my hand and say something, I absolutely could. And I think that's great. And I can draw on my previous program management experience to contribute in that way in the future, once I feel more comfortable that I really understand what we're trying to do on the globalization team at Netflix. So quick answer is yes, I can and eventually will.
Awesome. Okay, I got to do another housekeeping call. We have 5-6 minutes left. Do we have you until the half hour, or are you willing to hang around for a few more minutes to get to these questions?
I can hang around. I don't. No. I'm actually good. I don't have anything until 1, so I'm good to hang around.
Yep, we'll keep it going.
Perfect. Let's go. All right. Another one was about day to day. You answered that. Do you adjust UX and UI for different languages? So I guess, do you handle any UX or UI for different languages? That's
a good question. I think at the scale that Netflix is, there's not a lot of that. I think it's really up to, and I'm answering this question thinking about like different strings and how they would be translated in different languages. For example, let's say there's a string that says swipe left. Now, for right to left languages, it might not be swipe left, it might be swipe right. So in an ideal world, we would avoid using any kind of language that would need to be localized in a different way. For the language, it would just say swipe or drag, or that's just one potential example of how UI could or a translation could change across languages. So in an ideal world, no. Everything is designed in a way that it can be localized consistently. But I think there may be a world in the future, particularly with the potential growth overseas of Netflix, where we start to see more native writing, where origination of product strings, because now you see that quite a bit. There's content that Netflix produces and creates from all over the world. But from a product UI standpoint, it's still very much centralized. So I think there could be a future world where there's more origination of product strings in a particular language if there was a potential to see growth in that area.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Let's see here. How much importance do you place on being able to speak another language? I work on a lot of technical content in 5 different languages that I don't speak a word of. I find attention to detail and making use of translation management software is quite important.
Yeah, I would say it certainly can make your life a lot easier, but it's not a requirement. I mean, I certainly work on, I get a lot of tickets. For example, I was working on a project today where the 3 issues I had to resolve were in Turkish, in Greek, and Hungarian, and I am not familiar at all with those languages. So I have to rely on other people in order to help me out with that, which is fine. And that's kind of the name of the game. You know, I don't think anyone expects anyone to be a polyglot and speak 5 languages. Now, when it comes to tickets in Spanish, I certainly will say that it makes my life easier because I can identify issues if they're minor, or even implement the fixes with confidence that I know that it's the right thing to do because I have experience and training in those languages. So is it a requirement? Absolutely not. Does it help? Definitely.
Spot on. What opportunities are there at Netflix for localizing from other languages into English?
When you say opportunities, do you mean like jobs or like I
Yeah, I don't know.
I would say
I don't
that.
know. I guess Luigi, if you're still there,
Well,
I was gonna say, Luigi, if you're still there, you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question yourself. What were you going for there?
jobs are freelance. He's just now
jobs are
said.
freelance.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So even though there's I would say the majority of content is English into other languages. There's plenty of opportunities from other languages into English. So yeah, that's going to be handled by our vendor team. That's even though that's the language pair is reversed, it's still going to be handled through our vendor team that way. So I would follow that path if you're looking for opportunities there.
All right. Similar question, just in case he was going that route. How did you get into Netflix? From first contact to finally getting an offer from them? Advice for someone applying.
And also, before you say that, anybody that has questions, please go to Netflix HR to apply for jobs, not Zach. Thank you.
There's so my experience was I was contacted by a recruiter at Netflix, actually for one role, and I had a conversation with them, and it turned out that I didn't have the right experience. It was still on the globalization team, but it was actually for program management, and they wanted someone that had more extensive experience in program management in localization, of which I really only had 1 year. Which was fine. But then about 3 weeks later, I got a contact from a different recruiter hiring for the project management team, which was a better fit in terms of the amount of experience that I had. And so, they were, Netflix was the one that initiated the conversation with me. What I will say is I started doing a lot of professional extracurricular activities. So you can see on my LinkedIn, I co-hosted a webinar with a previous TMS vendor and a CMS vendor, Smartling and Contentful, about how Lyft uses both of those products in order to localize our content. I was a guest on a podcast that Smartling did and posted that to my LinkedIn. So I think I would definitely say if you're looking to get your name out there and get noticed, start doing these events if you have the opportunity, just so people can know you. I mean, that's probably why I'm here right now is because I did a lot of those events, and I have knowledge to share. People want to hear about my experiences, and I'm happy to share. So I would say really highlighting yourself and your successes and letting people know that you're awesome, because you are awesome, that will definitely go a long way.
Yeah, I'm going to agree 100%. Putting yourself out there and networking is probably the number one thing you can do for your career, no matter what you're doing. If you're able to share, what is the tech stack used at Netflix for localization? What is your TMS, your review technology, etc.?
Yeah, I can't share that.
No
let's
problem.
just hold on.
Hey,
Let's just say that there's a lot of internal tools that were developed by Netflix in order to facilitate the localization process, and that's probably about as far as I can go.
Next question, please. Thanks.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay asking them.
It sounds like there's a content/marketing localization side of the house and then a product side that operates separately. Is that a right assessment? You said yes. Lastly, how do you integrate localization standards with the product dev org?
So let's see, localization standards. I think that's very much where, well, at least on the linguistic side, I think that's where language managers come in for their own regions and locales and implement their best practices and their glossary terms, terminology, and things like that. But then on the more logistical side of that, I think project management are probably the best people to inform that. So there's a lot of processes that have been come up with, particularly for project managers, to make sure that when tickets are filed, when issues are filed, there's a process to go through to get them resolved. And it's interesting because, one of the reasons, not the main reason that I was brought in, but one of the things they asked me in the beginning was, look, you're coming from a different company. We've been doing things this way. Let us know if there's anything that can be improved. And that was really kind of nice. Looking from the outside, you think, oh, Netflix, they got everything figured out, but they have lots of things figured out and things work really, really well. Can they work better? Of course, because there's always ways to improve. And so that's something that I'm taking on kind of on the side is looking at the different processes and how they work in order to take them from amazing to incredibly amazing, I guess would be the best way to put it.
All right. The next one asked advice about skill sets for somebody passionate about content rather than product, but you kind of went over that. So Camicia, you can look at the recording and we'll go back. Sorry to skip you. Zach, is Netflix using or planning to use machine translation for subtitles?
I honestly don't know. Because I work on the product side.
So that's a fair
yeah,
answer.
no, and I don't want to give a wrong answer or make something up. I truly don't know much about that process. I've only been there a couple months. I'm sure I'll learn more about it down the line. But because there's so much testing done on the product side, I really haven't had a chance to learn about that. So I don't know to what extent they're using machine translation.
Cool, no problem. We don't blame you. How much time do you give studios to deliver localized product for TV series and features? Spasibo, we have a Russian in the house.
That's another one you stumped me on. Again, on the content side, I don't have a ton of visibility just yet in terms of timelines and processes there, just because I'm so focused on the product side. So I apologize. I'm not able to give an answer for that one.
All right, not a problem. The next one is Michael promoting his podcast where Zach was his first guest. So if you guys want to check out Michael's
nice.
podcast with Zach on it, that link is there. There you go, Mike.
Nice, Michael.
Great one. Yay.
Nice.
Go check it out, everybody.
I was looking for names on,
I told you,
on
I'll
the
get
list.
to
I
every
didn't see
question
there.
in the chat. All right, the next one was, do you think Netflix will use AI translation? You kind of answered that you don't know. And then how can I be a PM? You also just answered that one as well. What are the criteria for choosing a language for localization, especially in countries with multiple languages? You said that was extremely data-driven.
It's very data-driven. There are very specific metrics that are reviewed. I don't think I can share what those specific metrics are, but I will say that it's a very deliberate process when a language is picked to localize into. So yes, look at the data, look at, a lot of the things you might think about would be related to seeing what a good market would be. But yeah, I can't really share specifics on the data details.
Okay, let's try this one. You mentioned the scale and global distribution of the team. From what I've seen, the in-house localization department only hires for the Los Gatos and LA locations. Could you share why this is a priority?
I don't think that's true. I think just looking at the public job postings, I think I saw a language manager based for Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. That was based out of Amsterdam. So I think there are job positions on globalization that are around the world. Now, most people are based out of LA and Los Gatos just because the company is an American company and those are the main headquarters. But there are quite a few offices around the world. So I think, and particularly now with COVID, who knows when we'll return to a more in-person working style. So there may be more flexibility on working remotely or working out of a different office across the world. So yeah, I think it might be mainly focused on LA and Los Gatos because the company's based there. But I'm almost positive that there are roles on the localization team that are based out of other countries and other
outside
offices.
of Cali.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very political answer. You did great. Okay, so this is the same as the previous question without being specific, and I think I can ask it. How much of your process is automated or driven by technology versus how much is manual? I think that's a fair question.
That is a fair question. So I think there are let's see. If I wanted to put like a percentage on it, I'd say maybe half is automated and the other half is manual. There's certainly quite a few tools that are available to us to generate the information and the pieces of data that we need. But when it comes to the actual triage of issues and the back and forth between linguists and testers and engineers, that part is all manual. So yeah, there's a decent amount of automation, but also a decent amount of manual work too, mainly just managing the communication channels back and forth between different internal and external stakeholders.
Awesome. Next question. Do you still just focus on Spanish or more languages? You mentioned that you are not just doing Spanish and you manage a lot more languages, right?
Yes, correct.
Yep. This is not a bad one. How do you feel your work-life balance is right now?
Much better than it was at Lyft, believe it or not. I guess that kind of makes sense, moving from a team of one over to a team where I have people that are supporting me and I have peers. And so if I need support, I'm able to rely on them. So I'd say it's pretty good now, actually. I feel like I'm working probably the same amount of hours, but it's stretched out a little bit more because there are people working in Asia and in Europe. So there'll be 8 a.m. meetings or 6 p.m. meetings to accommodate that. So I feel like my day is a little bit longer, but as far as like the balance between, I'm able to take a lot more breaks and I would say there's just a lot more support I have. So not everything falls on my shoulders the way it did at Lyft. So it's good. It's good.
Okay, I think there's...
Cool. All right, for the sake of time, he's been doing great, yeah.
2 more questions, I think.
Go ahead,
There's
Marina.
some lovely comments coming in. People are sending you a lot of love there, Zach. And, there's a lot of frustration these days with work and with pandemic and so forth. So keep networking, everybody. Keep talking about things. Keep improving your education. There's so many things. And Zach, there's going to be a question coming up about education. How do you learn about it? And there's many different vehicles available. There's formal, university level courses. There's certification programs. There's learning from each other. you know, so many places now to find out about localization. So Zach, Phil, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Zach. The question here is, how do you get that education? What's the ideal education for a localization professional?
Yeah, you know, I'm biased here, so I feel like having a background in education in language, I think is a really great start. And you know, I've been actually trying to go back to my alma mater in Northern California and talk to other people that were also Spanish majors to let them know that this is a route that they can go. But like you said, there's a lot of different seminars that you can go to. I think conferences are really great. I know they can be a little bit expensive sometimes, but GALA, the Globalization and Localization Association, didn't come up with that name. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's a great organization with a bunch of really great people. And I love interacting with them. And I think they have some really great resources and seminars across the world. Loch World is one, again, a little bit on the expensive side, but a lot of times they have events. But, you know, there's a meetup group in San Francisco. I think SF Globalization is one. And then in South Bay, you've got iMug. I always forget what iMug stands for, but you know, look for those.
User Group.
There it is. Those types of organizations are really great because a lot of times they will have free seminars. And so getting to know people as well as getting to familiarize yourself with information about localization, because you know, I'm not too familiar. I can't imagine there's a ton of like localization majors at colleges. It's not something that you really major in. I'm sure it exists.
It is, yeah.
But like I would say there's probably not as many programs at colleges as there are, you know, say, you know, like business administration or, you know, something more generic like that. So being able to meet people that are in the industry as well as attend those seminars is a really great way to get educated on what it means to be part of the localization industry.
That's fantastic. And I see people are putting chats, links in the chat, so be sure to everybody save those chats. And then, of course, there's different podcasts going on. Katrin Bussmann has a Worldly Podcaster, which is really interesting time, reaching out even far beyond the localization world to just educate everybody why we do this. Great. So, Phil, you want to, I think there's one or two more questions.
Oh, to be completely fair, I lost it all in the chat. I went to the bottom.
The chat's just blowing up.
I don't know. It was really hard. There was like 50 questions. That was really hard to keep track of. I should have copy and pasted or done something better, but I tried to do my best. I think for the sake of this, Zach's been amazing, and he's stayed on 20 minutes longer than we asked him to. So we can call it. And if we find anything in the chat worth mentioning, then you know, we can figure out a way for him to answer it and either put it in the meeting invite or post it in LinkedIn or something like that. But Zach, thank you so much for answering all the questions. You were amazing. We learned a ton. We got over 100 participants. So for something with less than a week of, you know, just post by me and LinkedIn, me and Marina on LinkedIn to try and get people here, this was amazing. Again, you're a huge draw. So continue to do these events and tell your story. It's fun to listen to, and I'm sure we'll see you more often. But I'll let Marina go some parting words. And if you want to give somebody some last minute advice, we saw 53 people on the line. Feel free as well.
Very good. Yeah. So as we do in Loc Lunch San Diego and all our Loc lunches, we always have this chat, and chat always has some interesting notes and questions and that kind of thing, and people's names coming up. So look forward to other events that I talked about earlier. We're going to have the day in the life of the translator, and a lot of our network, our translators, couldn't do the work without them. And really interesting from you, Zach, just fantastic, and good luck to you at Netflix. Everybody that didn't get their answers, we will put that into the LinkedIn event. And yeah, this event, for an informal thing, I think I had, my initial post was like almost 3,000 views. So it's fantastic how much interest there is. And I think global entertainment is definitely a hook to get people on the outside interested in what goes on in the inside. So thanks everybody so much. Phil, you've been so awesome, co-moderating, so smooth and helpful at all times. Zach, just delightful to talk to you, and we'll definitely be in touch and see how is life at Netflix in a few months. So
sounds good to me.
Tune in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. You're just wonderful. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We will see you next time. Bye.